Welcome to the Spike Feed, your leading Magic the Gathering podcast. What is up? My name is Curtis, and I'm just your typical Spike. On the line with me, my producer extraordinaire, Cameron McCoy. What's up, dude?
Well, a little saddened and disheartened. As you know, I lost the rap battle because Dustin and I are both huge into the rap battle scene of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he just schooled me in every single way. So I went to Seattle, trained with some of the best hip hop artists there, and we're going to be meeting up in Seoul, Korea for our final battle next week.
Whoa, the gauntlet hath been laid down. What? I mean, is it the MC that is the guy that is the officiating guy of a rap battle? I don't even know how that works.
I think that's you, right?
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know that you want that, Cameron.
I need you at least as my hype man. We'll say
Oh,
that, but
the guy that's behind you going,
yep,
oh, that.
yep,
See, I've got
yep.
that down. Anyway, we are a Magic the Gathering podcast. There's lots of Magic the Gathering to talk about. Been busy weeks for us, so I'm afraid our first segment of what we've been doing this week is going to be a little short and sweet. Cameron, you spent your whole week eating ice cream nachos and not playing Magic. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was working the Iowa State Fair. We do 10 days of coverage, and so it's always just kind of crazy busy at that time of year. And so uh, Magic is a no-go for those 10 days, which is always kind of a bummer.
So, how did it go?
It went really well. I mean, we had some good coverage. It's folksy. It's Iowa. I mean, it's very much of that time. But the Iowa State Fair is actually one of these like weird things that exists, and it's hard to explain to people all that it encompasses.
Mm-hmm.
But it is actually it can be an enjoyable time.
True, false. It's been directly related to you covering both Donald Trump and the band Sublime.
Uh, Kind of in like a 6 degrees of separation sort of way. Yeah.
Well, my week has also been nothing as nearly as intense, but a lot of work hours this week. So, and I also, because you were shamed via rap battle so badly, I had to edit the show last week. And by the way, I hear that you made it like halfway through an episode that I edited, so that's good. Before it just was so
My ears were burning and I had to rip my mic. Yeah, all that. So
yeah. So anyway, so I had to edit the show and all this. So I just stream modern. I'm on this Jeskai Monastery Mentor list, and I went 4-1 the first time I streamed it, and then man, I went 0-3, like got destroyed this stream. And so I was like, okay, well I'm 0-3. I got to edit the show. So we just kind of did a quick, and I mean they were quick losses. Like I don't think I won a game, right?
wow. Okay.
Um, but it's kind of one of those things with modern. I mean, granted, I don't know that I was playing super great either, but it's kind of one of those things with any older formats. Sometimes when you run into bad matchups or your deck doesn't do what it's meant to do, you just get
Yeah.
housed very
I mean,
quickly.
is everybody just like prepared now for the meta game of like I have to deal with an Ember I have to deal with Nahiri. Is it just more people are prepared, do you think, for that deck?
Well, no, this is the non-Nihiri list. So it's technically it's
Oh,
just guy token. So it's more tempo based, and you play 4 Young Pyromancer, 3 Monastery Mentor.
wait, what? What is this?
It's just it's
I don't know this deck. Okay.
it's a deck I found online. So I played Nihiri last month. I still have
Okay.
Nihiri pieces. If I were being very honest, like if I were to show up to a tournament tomorrow and the modern world was my oyster, I'd play Nihiri. Okay. The
Hmm.
Jeskai tokens list I wanted to just try out. And with my stream, it's kind of become I want to tinker and mess around with things, not just play the most competitive list. I'm definitely not a brewer either, but I definitely like to take things and kind of alter them just slightly and see what
Hmm.
happens. And that's definitely been the mission statement with Standard, which I didn't get a chance to play this week, with my Ban Humans list, which I am just a huge believer in Ban Humans. I think that deck is way better than its current representation in the metagame, and I don't know why. Like, I honestly think it's better than just Bant Coco, like the Spell Queller deck.
Hmm.
And Brad Nelson had an unbelievable record with the Ban Humans list this weekend, so I don't feel like it's just me. Like, it's just incredibly bad against Black White Control. Like
Hmm.
the matchup's almost unwinnable, but against Coco and against the Delirium deck, I feel like your deck's a lot better. So whatever. The point is, the Jeskai tokens deck, which is what we're roundabout ways kind of talking about. I found online, and I just wanted to mess with it. It's a tempo deck, and I hated the sideboard, so I kind of altered the sideboard. I had a really good first night with it against Jund and Affinity, and in fact, I didn't play those decks the second time around. And the deck is also, just like all the Jeskai variants in Modern, I feel like is a little prone to flooding out because you have to play over 20 lands, like usually 22, 23. And multiple land draws in a row in Modern at bad times like make you super dead. Whereas
yeah, I can believe it. Yeah.
Delver and Dredge and some of these other decks and Infect are so honed on being kind of sleek and fast, right? Kind of they're almost like sports cars. They're very much dedicated towards that one thing. And if you can get them off the pavement a little bit, they just fall apart. But if they're if you can't disrupt them very well, then they just crush, right? So I'm going to keep playing this Mentor deck throughout August, and then next week I'm going to look into this blue-white Flash Spell Queller deck. So it's like Snapcaster, Vendilion Click, and then Spell Queller.
You're speaking my language.
I know,
this sounds
right?
incredible.
Like, it sounds awesome. And we talked about it a little bit last week, but I mean, Eldritch Moon is making a huge dent in Modern. There's a ton of these cards that are seeing play. And I mean, going into it, I thought, there's probably just a few, but really, there's been several Distended Mindbender, Spell Queller, being kind of the leaders of the pack there. But there's a lot. And Liliana, don't be stunned if it actually sees play over other Liliana. I know this is crazy, but decks that have creatures like Jund, it might actually be a better fit. Because Jund doesn't have issue. Like, the sack thing that the old Liliana can do is just okay in certain matchups, right? But new Liliana, whenever you're playing against Infect and Affinity, is much better.
Yeah, you can wreck them. Yeah, for sure.
So, anyway, these are all things I'm talking about. Have you gotten to play any of the new standard? You just played Spirits one week. Is that it?
Yeah, and then I played online. I played a little bit of the humans deck, mono white humans, flashing red, which it's still doing some things. I might go on later this week and check that out. But this week it's all going to be dedicated towards spirits and trying to find the right balance with that to figure out how it'll perform. So I'm excited.
Right on. You might be surprised to learn that Tom Ross is still playing mono white humans and is still doing really well with it.
I'm not surprised.
Nobody else seems to be, but that's the case with him. So anyway, we're gonna have a big long middle segment on conspiracy. We're gonna be talking about some Eternal Magic. I know some people have been really wanting us to talk a little bit more about Legacy, so we're gonna jump into that. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. So today we're talking about Conspiracy 2. Now, Conspiracy 1, I never played. I had no interest in playing at multiplayer Magic. Honestly, I would be much more likely to play something like Conspiracy than I would play EDH. Just because, hey, it's kind of like a board game tabletop experience. It's a one-time thing. Did you ever get to play Conspiracy 1, Cameron?
Did I? I'm trying to remember what multiplayer Magic I played one time and just wasn't for me.
Sounds like
it might have been.
Sounds like it made a huge impact. Sounds like it's
huge
very
impact.
Memorable.
Yeah.
But Conspiracy 1 was, notable for us because things like Council's Judgment were printed in it, and Exploration and Stifle saw reprints. Stifle at the time needed a reprint very badly. It was seeing a lot of Legacy play. Now, I'd say that Stifle's kind of, it's in Grixis Delver sometimes, but Exploration needed a reprint as well. But this time around, we've got a lot more reprints to cover. So, Cameron, I'm going to go through the reprints first, and we'll just kind of talk about each one. So let's start here. Kind of the most shocking one, I would say, is Show and Tell. So what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, like this morning, I haven't really checked out any of the new conspiracy spoilers until this morning. And so it was a jaw drop for me when I saw Show and Tell. It was the first card I saw that I recognized, and I was like, wait, they're doing what? They want Legacy to continue? I mean, I'm just so confused with like why this wasn't in Eternal Masters. And, like, and the fact that these packs are now MSRP, they're cheaper than what you would pay for a premium product like Eternal Masters,
Mhm.
and you're getting a great card. So yeah, just seeing show and tell is great. You don't see a lot of show and tell right now in Legacy. I mean, it's there, and you'll see it a lot in the shops. It's not really making a huge impact in the, I guess, the larger metagame. But
What
I
we
am just
okay,
so glad to see this out in the wild, and that we're going to see more of these cards, and that people are going to be playing more show and tell.
you're right. Like the what exists is the competitive metagame is very narrow because we don't have very many big events. It's much more of a shop thing. And so show and tell has not made a huge impact in a long time because it's not great against Grixis Delver. It's not great against Eldrazi. Both those decks can interfere with it very heavily. However, this is a legacy staple. It is also a multiplayer Magic card, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Talk about mixed messages, right?
Yeah.
I haven't dealt with mixed messages like this since I was in high school. It's like, guys, you're either killing legacy or you're not. What is this? What is this half step, right? Like, cut it out. Just tell me what to think, right? But at the end of the day, hey, look, show and tell is a reprint. I'm happy that they're doing this. And again, show and tell is also one of the decks, to be fair, that you can actually get away with pretty easily not playing with dual lands.
Yeah.
Force Will's going to reprint. So this is a deck that can exist. And since they printed Containment Priest, I mean, the hate for it is pretty accessible as well. Okay, another card, Berserk. This is seeing more play because of the popularity of Infect. Have you had Berserk cast on you lately, Cameron?
Oh, yeah. I guess I played against Infect like 2 weeks ago or whatever that was. Whenever I played Legacy at the shop, it's a great card. I'm super excited to see this. Once again out in the wild. Like every single one of these reprints, I'm going to be so positive on that. Like, there's really nothing to say except, yay, this is great. Why am I getting mixed messaging? And yeah, let's move on.
And by the way, both of these were mythics thus far, right? So that's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
important thing
yeah.
to point out. Berserk seems a little less like a multiplayer card. Just putting that out there, but hey, cool that it's out there. Both of these have been the newer artwork, for what it's worth. The other one that, I mean, again, there's not that much to say is Burning Wish. Seeing a lot less legacy play. Would fit in the occasional show and tell, and not so much in Storm anymore. But cool. It's seeing a reprint. It's a regular rare. Yay, Burning.
Now this is the one that is Burning Wish. How expensive is that right now? I haven't even checked my prices.
I don't know. That's probably one that, I mean, when I purchased them, they were $12. I feel like they would be in that range again, but who knows? It could be $100. It could be $5 at this stage.
Yep, you're right. Right around $12.
There we go. Yay.
Yeah.
I mean, hashtag MTG Finance got there, right?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. Okay, so the more kind of controversial ones that we really need to cover. So, firstly, Serum Visions. It's an uncommon, the card that we love to hate. We should actually play some sort of game on this show of like when we say something negative about Serum Visions or Batman versus Superman, right? They're the two show whipping boys.
They really are. Yeah.
But it's good that it's getting a reprint. Odd that it's not the new artwork, isn't it?
I guess. I mean, did anybody actually like that new artwork?
No.
I wasn't a big fan.
No one liked the new artwork, but
yeah.
Hey, it's back. Now, let's dig deep into Inquisition because I think that is the one that there's a lot to say. So, Inquisition of Kozilek needed a reprint very badly. Now, there's a couple things going on. So, the original artwork has been changed with this new artwork. I had to look at this for a long time to understand what I was looking at. It was like a Rorschach test or something, right?
It says more about you than it does about the card. Yes.
that maybe that was their plan all along. So mind bending, man. But anyway, so they upshifted it in rarity. Inquisition, I believe, is like a $10-ish card, and it's fluctuated in price over time. But yeah, first of all, it is a modern staple. If you're playing a black deck, you're probably playing Inquisition or Thoughtseize or some combination thereof. and the original Inquisition was an uncommon in a big set in Rise of Eldrazi. So, Cameron, first of all, what do you think of this card in general, and then the rarity upshift?
Yeah, I mean, like this card in general, it seems great. I mean, Inquisition is such a powerful card. It is like Thoughtseize level in my mind. Like it really is. It's like a snap, like you said. Just if you're playing black, this is something that you're going to play. Um, it is kind of weird though that I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the rarity upshift, but I'm glad to see it in reprint. I hate this new artwork, so I'll just be picking up, you know, the other ones. I have my playset, but I always go for that original artwork on those ones. Uh, yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not too negative on it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I have one or two Inquisitions. Like I've been trading them away. Like I drafted a lot of Rise in paper because it's one of my favorite sets ever. So I had a large quantity that I've slowly kind of been just pitching off. I actually, because I play Grixis control sometimes in Modern, I actually don't like Inquisition in that deck very much. So
Mhm.
it's not a card that I'm like super duper seeking out. But you're right. Like I think we can all agree that the old artwork is just more iconic, etc. Right?
Yep.
Um, even like it's not even like a preference thing. It's just like this feels like such a weird art direction gaff. Like I don't even know how this is an Inquisition, but whatever. Anyway, the upshift rarity stuff really frustrates me, and I hate it when people say things like, "Well, we got the reprint we deserve, so we really can't complain." Like, first of all, yeah, I think I can be a little irritated by that, right?
Mhm.
Um, because it is just kind of an artificial way of protecting people's quote collection. And I mean, while I find it a much more egregious problem with Tarmogoyf because we're talking about people spending 50, 60, $70 that they probably shouldn't have to because we decided arbitrarily that this
Mhm.
rare should be a mythic. And by the way, when you talk to new players, you get these weird kind of, well, of course Tarmogoyf should be mythic.
Mm. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, why? It's just a green dude. But with Inquisition, I mean, the difference between uncommon and rare is a jump. It's not as much of a jump as you might think. I'm just more irritated at the pattern of this happening. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
And look, for one of Modern's best cards, best discard spells, spending $10 is not like the worst thing in the world. But
Yeah.
Wizards could do better, right? They could do better. And also, it's been pointed out multiple times, and this is not one that I have anything to say about, but I guess it's a terrible multiplayer card. And so people were kind of irritated that it was a rarity, a
Mhm.
rare for that. Like if you're drafting, actually physically drafting Conspiracy, it's like a totally terrible rare to open. So
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
yeah, exactly. So, and the chat has mixed emotions about it too, right? So, uh, I feel like that's kind of what everybody's saying. Like, yay, we got it back, but okay. So,
Yeah.
Cameron, let's talk about some of the new cards. And probably, why don't you start us off with Recruiter of the Guard? Can you read that?
Yeah. Let me pull that up here. We got Recruiter of the Guard. Cost 2 and a white for a 1/1 human soldier creature. When Recorder of the Guard enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's Imperial Recruiter, and I can't remember how much is an Imperial. What's the casting cost of Imperial
I believe
Recruiter?
it's two in a red.
Okay, so this is great. I mean, like, I mean, I don't. It's kind of incredible that you're getting a card that's essentially the same card, talking about one of the most expensive Magic cards too, right? Or legacy playable Magic cards. Um, so it's interesting that it exists, and I'm glad to see it. This is definitely going to see legacy play. I'm curious to see what sort of deck people are going to fit this into.
Well, I mean, Death and Taxes, you can go get basically any of the toolbox creatures you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can do things like flash him in with Vile, go get Containment Priest
Yeah.
in response to Dredge or Show and Tell. And there's some other really interesting things you can do. There's a lot of combo potential. You can't get Painter Servant, right? Because it's toughness. So
Yeah.
like that breaks that up a little bit. But a Lurin combo can potentially play this card. So there's a lot of room here to work. But I feel like we've been saying this a lot lately. Like Death and Taxes has been getting some serious tools,
Yeah.
right? I was having this talk in the shop, and somebody was, they were talking about the new Thalia, and they were saying like, really, is Thalia any good in Legacy? And it was like, have you seen a Death and Taxes list, man? They're playing Mirran Crusader, like,
Yeah.
come on, right? Like Thalia just shuts down so much more.
Shuts down ancient tombs. I mean, like that's huge.
Yeah, fetch land, like it's just crazy. And anyway, I feel like we were a little vindicated on that card, by the way. Like new Thalia is great, guys. Just deal with it. But this card is the one that it's like stands out as the most Legacy playable. I just want to mention this one, Sanctum Prelate. I don't know how I say that.
I like Prelate. Yeah,
you like Prelate. Anyway, so this one's weird. It's 1 white for a human cleric. That's a 2/2. As it enters the battlefield, you choose a number. Okay, so again, not when it enters the battlefield, but as it enters the battlefield. Weird, right?
Yeah.
Non-creature spells with converted mana cost equal to the chosen number can't be cast. Okay, so again, it's very corner case kind of card, but it does counter Abrupt Decay.
Yeah.
Okay. 90% of the time, I feel like you would say the number 1 with this. But the number 2 is going to come up and it's going to wreck certain opponents. So again, maybe out of the side for Death and Taxes in particular matchups, but I feel like, if you name it, let's say you're in Death and Taxes versus Shardless, that matchup, and you cast this guy in name 2, it's really tough for them because they can't cast Tarmogoyf and they can't cast Abrupt Decay, and they don't have Lightning Bolts in their deck. So it's an interesting situation, right? Anyway, so I like this card. I don't think it's like nuts, but it's good. Do you want the Planeswalker or the Legendary Dude?
Let me do the Planeswalker. I'm kind of interested in that one.
Okay, I want to mention one thing. Like, when we were doing the pre-show, you were saying, why does everybody in Conspiracy look like a jerk? And now all the artwork I'm looking at, like these guys, it's like, yeah, that guy does look like an unpleasant character.
It's like they saw Dak Fade and they're like, we have to up him. Right?
They were like, yeah, I mean, it is a conspiracy, Cameron. It is a conspiracy, right? Not full of savory characters, right? They're unsavory by nature. So anyway, what do we got with the ready?
So we got the ready Ingenious Iconoclast, which is a great name. Cost 1 black and a red. He's a planeswalker with a starting loyalty of 3+1. Put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with Defender onto the battlefield. -1. You may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, destroy target artifact or creature. -6. Choose target artifact card in graveyard or artifact on the battlefield and put 3 tokens that are copies of it onto the battlefield. So yeah, there's like, it seems like this card has a lot of utility. Where it fits, I have no idea. Like it seems like it would be kind of a weird card to put in like a Grixis shelf or for like Grixis Delver or Grixis Control. But that -1 of sacrifice a creature or sacrifice an artifact, and then you can destroy target artifact or creature. Like this is just like really good spot removal that you can just kind of churn through things. So if you're playing something like Death and Taxes, I see this being just like a great utility as far as like solid removal, where sometimes those decks really do struggle with like really good removal other than like Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could also just fit into the Painted Servant deck. Like you just splash black, so you're like, that deck does play Blood Moon and things like that, but you can essentially just splash some Badlands or whatever, and then you're pretty well set here. Feels like more of a vintage card because of the destroy artifacts thing.
Yeah.
But putting 3 1/1s on the field is not nothing, right? Like that can really matter in the long run. So I like the potential for this card. It's very, again, just like the other Eternal playable cards, it's very corner case. I don't think you're just going to throw it in a Grixis Delver deck or whatever. Just like with Dak Faden, you didn't just put him in blue-red Delver just because. But when the matchups where this card is going to be good, it's going to be really good, right? And in vintage, the mana, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to be able, like you're playing Moxes, you're playing Black Lotus. As long as you
Yeah.
have the fetchable lands, you should be more than okay. Last card for Conspiracy. This guy definitely looks like a jerk. To be fair, Leovold, Emissary of Trent. He's he's bug, so black, green, blue for a 3/3 legendary creature elf advisor.
Oh yes.
Okay. We've all been there. Each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So I just like this guy out of the side in Shardless Bug. Whenever you're playing against another like control deck or another brainstorm deck, this is a huge problem for them.
Yeah. This is great in the mirror, I think.
Yeah, it's great in the mirror. And honestly, it's not like there's a lot of Shardless Bug cards that you're like, man, I'm going to put that in for the mirror. You know what I mean? Like, it's just been, I'll increase my density of threats, or I'll take this out, or trim this. Where this is a pretty sweet thing to resolve. And it feels like, if you have it down, the best case scenario for your opponent is they Abrupt Decay it and you get a card back out. Right? So,
true. Yeah.
You're still 2 for wanting them, which is not nothing. It actually makes their hymns oddly worse, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like here, but again, I don't think it's going to be a main deck, because you might just have this guy in play and then they're like storm kill you or whatever. 3 is the absolute top of your curve for a lot of things, and you cannot cascade into them, so that matters, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so last thing I wanted to talk about here, Cameron, before we move on to our last segment, is Puca Trade. So right now, Puca Trade is in maintenance because they're updating for their new version of their site. So I just want to mention this. This is what their campaign was for, and there's some major changes. So for those of you who don't know, Puca Trade is a peer-to-peer trade service that has been subject to a lot of controversy. They raised a lot of money on Indiegogo. Their timetable was a little awkward or a little bit behind schedule, I should say. And now, like today, as we're recording on Sunday, they are undergoing the changes to allow the following. And these are big. MTGO trading. So essentially, you can turn physical cards into MTGO cards or MTGO cards into physical cards. I suspect there will be a lot more people leaving MTGO for physical cards than vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Trading cards in all conditions. It used to be you had to be near mint no matter what, or you had to say, hey, I'm fine with getting slight play, whatever. And then multiple languages, which is huge for us because we deal with Dustin, who seems to have only foreign cards, which is super awesome. There's some other things like trading insurance and customizing your profile, but those are the big things. Now, Cameron, I want to ask you, man, like, what's your outlook on this? I know you have such a great shop that you've never really wanted to deal with the physical end, but what about the MTGO end?
Yeah, so I mean, I've never used Puca Trade. I think it's a great service, or what, like the core service at its core really was really, really good. This all just seems great, and I don't see how you can be almost against this. Just the fact that you were able to use MTGO as a new toolbox to assemble a collection of cards, that is very intriguing to me, to the point where maybe, when the service launches and it does have positive feedback from you or from whoever, I might check it out.
Okay. Well, so our guy Brian, who's a what's the word I would look a Puca Trade. He's written an article on Puca Trader too. He's had a lot to say about it on Twitter, etc. He's talking about like how most people, and this is in the chat, will sell ticks and buy and convert those into Puca points and try to utilize the currency that way, because Puca points are not worth a full dollar anymore because of the Puca-flation.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
My goal is almost entirely going to be physical cards to MTGO cards because, hashtag dad life, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how that all goes. Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part. Maybe a lot more people will turn physical cards into MTGO. I don't know. But before, I'd use something like Cape Fear Games or a service, and it was buy list, so it wasn't anywhere near equivalent, but I still was able to grab a ton of the collection, that I needed. So we'll see what
Hmm.
happens with this. It's definitely worth following if you're like me and you're just kind of, you get to play Magic 2-3 times a month in paper, and it's a little bit tougher. So anyway, I just want to point that out and kind of get that info out there. So Cameron, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to catch up with what's been going on with you, dude. All right, Cameron. So final segment today. Just want to talk about some of the things that you and I have been watching, playing. Not a ton because we both had like crazy intense work weeks. Uh,
Yep.
but we need to go back because we promised we'd cover Stranger Things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And you finished it.
I've finished it. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the show?
Should we just put like a little spoiler warnings or anything? Just
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I
Okay.
don't,
So
I don't know that we're gonna go super in depth on what happens to each
sure.
character, but we might discuss the ending a little bit. So just know that
Yeah.
that's a thing.
So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this series. I thought it was like just a great case study on how you can take like a known formula and kind of repackage it for modern day audiences and make something that is like truly just stylistically great. I love that world that they
Hmm.
kind of built and whatnot. I thought that overall was like the best part of the show. There, certain things that kind of bugged me as far as like it falls into like every single horror genre trope where it's like no human character on the face of the earth has ever made the decision to go that direction rather than that direction, or just things like that that really bug me. It's like the show is so smart and so good with like all these like sci-fi things that when it makes that, it totally pulls me out of the world where I'm like, oh, come on, nobody would do that. So like those are the things that kind of frustrated me, but
Hmm.
overall, yeah, solid show. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I think I mentioned this last time. Soundtrack's a 10, right?
Oh
Unbelievable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's part
Like,
of the world. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and on a technical level, very well made. And I would say this. So my thing with it is I really liked everything but the teenager piece of it.
Hmm.
And what happened was, and this was like an interview, or maybe they mentioned it on the Slash Filmcast. I can't remember, where they said the goal was to put the adults in a Stephen King movie, the kids in a Steven Spielberg movie, and the teenagers were in a John Carpenter movie. And that just completely speaks to my preference because I'm not that big into John Carpenter.
Hmm.
And so the teenage stuff I found, and that was where the biggest like logic leaps in terms of what the
You're
characters are
right.
doing. And it was just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's one moment where the girl crawls through that tree and ends up in the other dimension, and you're just like, why would you ever
Why?
do that? Why would that
Yeah.
be a thing that you would do? And so I love that it existed, and I like this story a lot better than I thought I would. The thing that kind of one of the things that irritated me was the villain stuff was pretty poorly explained. It was
Hmm.
just more like conspiracy, right? And that's all
Hmm.
you got. But the real revelation for me was the kid actors. I thought they were unbelievable, great, and I just loved spending time with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. I was completely, and I'm not a D&D player at all. I've played it like twice in my life, but I was completely heartened by how they used it, explained it, described it, and treated it with respect.
Hmm.
And I mean, not to throw Big Bang Theory under the bus here, because I know a lot of people love that show, but I just can't sit through it because everything is nerd jokes. Look, they said a nerdy thing. It's so funny, and it's just this nerd shaming culture stuff that I cannot handle. I hate with every fiber of my being. And to see it treated this way was just really great. Um anyway, so there's Stranger Things liked, and it's pointed out in the chat that I guess they're going to stick with that same group of characters, which it would be cool if they made it more like an anthology or something where they jumped around. But I do love
Yeah,
some of these actors, right? Like, uh,
yeah.
so anyway, what have you been playing video games? Just more Overwatch?
Yeah, just deep dark hole of Overwatch right now, and it's just I have nothing new to say. It's just this great community that I love being a part of. I mean, I love that like even during the Olympics, there's like this weightlifter, female weightlifter from I think Spain, who did this incredible lift, and then she did like the Zarya heart thing, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like that was so perfect to just like see like this real world thing happen, and then with like a video game meme was super amazing. So yeah, that's pretty much where my world's been right now.
Hey, dude, Overwatch is something special. It's so refined and so well made. Uh, and let me just talk a little bit about um, the game I've been playing, which is No Man's Sky. So I mentioned it last week. Dude, this game is laced with problems. It has an incredibly repetitive gameplay loop. If you go through it saying, I'm going to finish this story, you're going to do the same things over and over and over again. I've had hard crashes on the game multiple times, and I'm playing on PS4. But there's something so incredible about finding a place that no one else has and living it and exploring it. And I keep telling people this. I'm going to tell you this, man. Like, don't play it for a year. Come back to it in a year, and then you'll be like amazed, because there's going to be so much of this stuff that is fake. So it's just like the early, like, first 2 or 3 months of Destiny, where there's a great nugget there. There's a great thing, and it is obscured by all these very real problems, right?
Yeah.
And the flight, I think you would actually get really frustrated with the space flight stuff. Like, you cannot crash your ship. Did you know this?
I didn't know that. It makes sense, I guess, but yeah.
The game actually holds your hand in terms of flight that much. So whereas Elite Dangerous, which I think is actually kind of a worse game, there's a lot less to Elite Dangerous, but the flight stuff in Elite Dangerous is like simulated. And I mean, landing takes minutes, not seconds. And but the flip side of that is the space combat is so satisfying because you feel like you have an expertise, Other thing I wanted to mention before we get out of here. Did you get caught up in Olympics fever, Cameron?
Just a little bit. I mean, I'd come home and just watch, Usain Bolt do incredible things, or, amazing swimmers accomplishing world records, that sort of thing.
Right. And all the super fun controversy with our U.S. Olympian swim team.
Yeah,
super great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for that look. We really appreciate it. Anyway, but I just want to recommend something. So if you have HBO, Real Sports, and it's kind of buried, they did an hour-plus long investigative story on the Olympic Committee, the IOC, which I think is International Olympic Committee. It is the most horrifying hour of reporting that you will watch. And you will have a hard time even reading about the Olympics after you watch it. It is unbelievable. And I don't want to be like Captain Crusader, like, you have to watch this and learn the truth. But it was really alarming and shocking to me. And something that I think people should kind of understand and maybe read up on it, if nothing else. Because, man, I actually just moved my microphone on accident. I'm so frustrated by it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, like, not since Making a Murderer have I watched something where I just had to pause the video and just stop and just think, oh my god, right? So anyway, lots of frustration with No Man's Sky, frustration with the Olympics, just frustration everywhere, Cameron. But yeah, maybe I should just play more Magic this week. That'll fix it, right?
That will fix everything. Yeah.
All right, man. So let's get out of this show. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, where could they find you?
That's on Twitter at Cameron_McCoy.
I am at Curtis Now. Our official show feed is at SpikeFeedMTG. We will check you guys next week.